All right, so we're done with the correct documentation exercise, which you're going to find in the announcements tab. What I want to focus on next is some of the stuff that's going to be A, required, or B, will be very, very helpful to you on the upcoming paper. We're going to start with the thing that's required. On everybody's paper for the career essay, you need to have the first page of your Alabama transfers. I've called it STARS in other videos that are already posted because that's what it used to be called. I'm working to transition to the new one so it's accurate. So we need to have the first page of our Alabama Transfers Guide at the end of our paper, preferably after your works cited page. How do we get to that? Well, same way you get to Canvas. One of your links is going to be the Alabama Transfers Guide. Okay. Now, everybody needs to have this first page of the Alabama Transfers Guide at the end of your paper. But you're not required to have an education discussion in the essay. That's optional. I want you to focus on what's important to you. And if a lot of education or the length of education for your job is not really that important, well, then it's not going to be part of your discussion. But the first page of your guide does need to be at the end of your paper. It's 5 points on the rubric. It's an easy 5 points. Please, please, please don't forget it because it really stinks to lose that 5 points if you don't have to. All right, so in the Alabama transfers, there's several options. Some of them are a little bit more geared toward being able to browse your major or different academic pathways. But what we're interested in is the official transfer guide, which is option 3. Okay? And this is going to show you not only the classes you would need to take at Coastal to transfer to a 4-year school, but it's also going to have links to the schools in Alabama to investigate some of the stuff that they require. So if you're using this in the career essay, what it's going to do is kind of let you see what kind of classes you might have to take after you leave here. Okay? If there's a bunch of classes that you have to be a chemical engineering major and they don't look very fun to you, well, you might want to reconsider your major. And it's okay to change your major. All right? People change on average 3 to 4 times in a 4-year degree. Okay, so when you click on option 3, it's going to ask you a series of questions. So it's going to ask you about your current situation. We're at a community college, find Coastal. I'm just going to do English because it's going to be at several schools. When do you expect to transfer? We'll say fall 24. We go next. Now I'm going to fill this out incorrectly because I want, if for some reason this gets to an actual person, they'll know that it's fake. Whichever one you check the most, because that's where they would send recruiting information. The question was, do you put your school email or do you put your personal email? And my advice is to just put the one you check the most. Check this box if you want schools to send you text messages. All right, once you put in this information, you do need to put in this information, and if you're worried about me having your personal information, I can look it up anyway in the system. So I already have it if I want it. All right, so the next question is, which universities are you interested in? I'm just going to put Alabama and Auburn. Now, here's kind of I wouldn't say sneaky, but they're trying to get as much recruiting information as possible. CO, they have these two things automatically checked. Check if we may send you information to the above universities to recruit you, and if you can share your information with other people. If you don't want to get information from the four-year school, then deselect it. If you do want to get information, go nuts. All right. Thank you for submitting the transfer guide, and you can go ahead and view your guide. This is the page you need to copy and paste to the end of your paper. It says official transfer guide, and it has your information here, so I know that you filled it out. So all you have to do is copy this, go into a Word document or Google Docs or whatever, and paste it. This is good enough. If you want to have a screenshot that you paste, that works as well. Print screen. Come on, you. I can't see in the dark. You just go to the end of your paper. You can paste the guide. Either way works. Okay. Any questions about how to get to the Alabama Transfers Guide before I move on and talk about what you can do with it? All right. Now, moving down, it's going to show you where your major is offered in the state of Alabama. And I'll get to that in just a second. But then it also shows you the core classes that you're required to take in order to transfer into this major. And you can, browse that at your leisure. But this is basically a contract between the community colleges in Alabama and the four-year schools to make sure that our classes are going to transfer. All right, so what can we do with these Area 5 pages? What does that mean? Well, let's go to Auburn. When you click on the Area 5 information, what it's going to do is it's going to link you to the department of your major. So you have to find it again on most of these sites. This is, pretty standard. So we're looking at English. We click on English, and it's going to usually give you the degree plan that you need in order to transfer. In addition, you can often, usually it's listed under academics, information on transfer students. Again, this is if you want to have a discussion about how much education is important to you, how long you want to be in school, and that sort of thing. Okay? Again, I want to reiterate, you do not have to necessarily use your STARS guide in the paper, but it does need to be at the end of your paper. And if you don't use it in the paper, you need to have 4 sources on top of that. Okay? Questions? All right, so many of you are in the stage of getting started with your papers, and I want to show you a really good site to get basic information on your career. Also, with a lot of things like salary information, places like monster.com or Career Builder, they're going to use this website for their information. Okay? It's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And all you need to do to find it is Google OOH. Yes, it has ooh la la there or whatever. But it will be the first thing that comes up. See, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Occupational Outlook Handbook. Okay? Now when we click on this, this is a .gov. You don't need prior approval. Remember, the approved research material policy is that if it's a .gov, a .edu comes from a library database. You can use it without approval. If it's a .com, .org, .biz, .net, you need to email me the website address so I can check it and approve it or not approve it. And I would say I probably approve well over 75% of the requests I get. So go ahead and send it to me. All right, so what can we do with this? We just search our career again. We're going to use a different one. I'm using registered nurse. And when you click on that search, which we're all familiar with, we should find our job. Now, some jobs you may have to reword it a little bit. I'm trying to think. Like physical therapists, for some reason, it's like physical therapists, occupational therapists, etc. But for registered nurses, it pops right up. And the cool thing about this is, remember, you have to have 4 sources on this paper. And if you have to have the first page of stars, but if you're not using stars in your paper, then you need to have 4 sources. Well, each article from the Occupational Outlook Handbook has several tabs. Work environment, summary. These are different articles. These are different sources. Each tab is a different source. Okay? So this is a good place to start to kind of, if nothing else, meet that minimum number of sources. Now, the cool thing here is it'll have a summary of what's going to be discussed. Remember that you have to define your career, especially the stuff that people do not necessarily know about it. Well, what they do in the work environment are right here. Okay? And that's a really good place to start for that. So, if we go into, let's say, pay, it'll give you the national averages of nursing pay. Okay? Government makes the most, hospitals, that's where the majority of nurses work, healthcare services, offices, and so on. Now, you're not going to start at this anywhere around here. This is 3 or 4 years in. Most nurses start probably about 45 a year around here. And it's simply because there's so many nursing schools. Between Mobile and Pensacola, there's probably 11 or 12 nursing schools. So that's a lot of new nursing graduates. So it's competitive. Another cool thing about the Occupational Outlook Handbook is the More Info tab. Why? One of the things that you're going to discover as you go through college is that research can kind of beget research. In other words, if you're using an article by an author who has 10 sources listed, they did some of your work for you. Okay? Don't just discount their reference or works cited page. And the OOH has a similar thing. It'll have links, and every career has this, it'll have links to American Nurses Association, a bunch of other places where you can get information on this career. So if you start at the Occupational Outlook Handbook, you have a good launching point to get most of your research done. Okay? Questions on this one? All right. Okay, so you'd cite each one of these as a short work from a website. Okay, so for example, if you use something from this page, it would be summary. Okay, so that'd be the title of the article. We don't have a listed author. We do have a date updated if you go to the bottom. And for those of you that aren't familiar with looking for last date modified, it's typically either at the top of the page or at the bottom. Okay, it's very, very rarely somewhere in the middle. So this would be your date updated. Okay, so title of the article is summary. Name of the website is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. The sponsor is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, here's the web address that we put after the date it was updated. And then the date access is whatever date you accessed it. So, well, why don't we just put this together real quick? So, summary, title of the article, name of the website, And we have the sponsor, which is U.S. I can never spell Bureau. Thank you. The word bailed me out. U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. The data was updated 6 September. And we have the address. Now, this is going to have to go on the second page. We go to, or second line rather. I'm going to double space it in a minute. Don't worry. Format. I don't know why Microsoft sets it this way. Very annoying. And you can change the default. I just haven't bothered on this computer yet. All right, so second line's indented. All these neat things you're finding out about Word. And then the date access. So today is the 25th, October, 2023. That's how you'd cite that tab. Now, if you also use pay, for example, you can do it one of two ways. This is the easiest way. I'm not going to mark you down if you do it this way. Copy and paste to your advantage. Hey. There you go. 2 sources right there. So. Okay. One other thing I want to show you is to get you started on the coastal library databases. Okay. These are things you can use without having to get prior approval, so it fits the approved research material policy. And there's a couple of tricks you can use to make your life easier with citation. So, click on Library Services. Every student here will have a Library Services page. Okay? You can find a book if you'd like. All you have to do is put in a search term. This will tell us, you know, if one of the libraries has 72 results. That's not a ton to look for. Now, one thing you do have to take note of, NCLEX study, all those sorts of things, is when you click on it, it's going to tell you which library it's in. So if it's not in the Bruton library, maybe in Monroeville or Thomasville, okay? You can request the book, but it usually takes 2 or 3 days to get it, all right, if it's in a different library. All right, another thing that Library Services has, which is really cool, are these databases. Again, you don't have to get these approved. And there's a lot of cool stuff to fiddle around with in here, especially if you're a cook or a chef or what have you. But what I like is the Alabama Virtual Library. And you can just click on all resources if you want. There's plenty of good websites like the Academic Search Premier, the Britannica. Now, the encyclopedia is not real in-depth information, so it can be used, but just be wary that it can look like a cop-out sometimes. There is going to be basic EBSCO searches, that sort of thing. Let's go with the general search. I would recommend EBSCO or Academic Search Premier if you're doing kind of a generalized search. Now, what I'm going to do is show you how you can narrow down your focus. So we're going to use the same search term as we used for the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Now, how many of you have time to go through 51,702 articles? I didn't expect any hands to go up. So we need to be able to narrow it down. Before I get to that, though, I want to show you just kind of the basics of what these are going to look like in terms of when you click on them. Now, there's going to be 2 different types of article. one that has a PDF full text. A PDF full text usually is like a photocopy of what it looked like in the actual journal, okay? Which means it's going to be complete with like graphs and pictures and things like that. Let me see if there's anyone. This one has an HTML full text. HTML full text is usually just the text of the article, like you see it here, okay? It's not like a photocopy. Whereas if we go back to that one that was a PDF full text, which was the first one, it should appear as it did in the magazine or the journal, and it does. Okay, see how the formatting is slightly different? You actually get a page number, which is nice. Okay. Another thing to take note of before I show you how to narrow this down is when you click on it, look at some of your tools. One, you can save it, save it for later. Oh, look at that. You can cite it. Now, when you click on cite, I don't mind you using this because you still have to find the right citation. If you just go with alphabetical, the first one is the Brazilian National Standards. That's not what we're using. I'm sure it's fine. I don't know anything about it. But we're using the MLA 9th edition. So you can copy this and paste it to your works cited, but now look at it. It's not formatted correctly. Darn. So what we need to do is make sure that we double space. And I don't like that highlight, but I don't know a perfect way to get rid of it. I usually don't mark down for the highlighting. I don't want that. There we go. Now, what is this missing in the stuff that it spit out? What should go at the end of a citation of a short work from a website? Yeah, state access. Sorry? Like, be able to click on the link? No, as long as you have the address, you can do it. And I forgot to put access to it. All right. So it's going to help you with your citation as well. All right, questions on this before I move on? All right, so let's work on narrowing the number of sources because 51,000 is too many. We go back to the results list, and how are some of the ways that we can narrow our focus? Well, for one thing, we don't want articles that are 80 years old. So we can start there. Let's just look at articles in the last 5 years. Okay, let's see what that does. Narrows it down to 9,000. So, cut it by 80% plus. So that's a good start. All right, we need to narrow it down a little bit more. Does anybody know what peer-reviewed means? Just like if you've ever done peer review in class of an essay, peer reviewed means that other people in the field have reviewed the article for its validity. It's not like, say, a blog where a person just writes down their own personal thoughts, opinions, arguments, all that sort of stuff. It's actually checked by others, okay? And that makes a difference. All right, so let's select peer-reviewed. Better, down to a little under 1,900. Still too many to look at. So let's say we want to narrow it down even more. Let's see. Let's say we want to look at nursing specialties. That gets us down to 44 articles. That's manageable because you can kind of see the title and quickly see an abstract to see what's going to be in the article. I always tell students, anywhere between 100 and 150, you can usually go through that in an hour or less. Okay, so that's not too daunting a task when you're doing a research paper. Okay? All right. Any questions on how to narrow it down? I've only put one to sleep. Okay. One last thing. I don't know if it's the last thing. Let's see how much time. One other thing I want to cover is something like a lot of these citation sites usually have a link to it in the library website. The library page, we looked at the catalog to look at books. I showed you the databases A through Z to get to the Alabama Virtual Library. Another thing that we have is research guides in the library. Okay, this is actually broken down by subject matter, also by MLA versus APA, that sort of thing. This is something to kind of file away for later. If you're in another class that's asking you to do a research paper. Okay, so one thing I want to show you, and this is something that should help you. You still need to be able to double check your citations. Okay, and it sounds, I don't consider it cheating because you still have to put in the information correct and format it correctly. So you still have to have a working knowledge of how citation goes. But in Citation Machine, you can actually create citation generators, okay? But again, you still have to enter the information correctly. So let's see, let's do a book. I'll do one of the ones from the documentation exercise. Now you can put this in the ISBN or you can do a manual citation. Okay, so we know the author from, and this is from the documentation exercise. And I know her political views are not very popular with a lot of people right now. I can separate the artist from the art. I don't necessarily care for her political views either, but I like her books. Vincent van Gogh was a horrific person to be around, but his paintings are gorgeous. You can separate artists from art. Okay, title. We don't have a volume number. We have an edition, publisher, Random House. Year, I think it was 96. Okay. Why do I let you do this? Because you have to complete the citation and double check what we're doing. Come on. You have to put up with the Chag ad. I bought the subscription service on YouTube, so I don't have ads. So these kind of ads really get under my skin. Okay. So it completed the citation, but we have to use the right type. What is the default? It's in alphabetical order. It's APA. We're using MLA 9. And here we go. Here is the citation. I bet you wish you knew about this before you did your documentation exercise. But again, when you, even if you copy it and paste it, it's not going to be perfect. Well, in this case, it was. It just went automatically to Times New Roman 12-point font. What do you know? Anywho. All right, questions on Citation Machine. All right, so we have a little bit of time left. I want you to show you one more thing, which is a Google Advanced Search. You might say, well, if I can use a .edu, I just want to look for articles in .edu websites. All right, so let's do a search. Oh, wow, only 622 million results. That's too many. And if we're looking for .edus, we keep scrolling down here, and we're not even getting to a .edu on the first page. So what can we do to narrow our search? What? I was going to say, we don't use Wikipedia. Oh, they keep moving. Okay, so under the little settings icon up here, again, it's on the settings icon, which you'll all forget because none of you are writing it down. You click on the settings icon and click on advanced search. Okay? And it's going to give you a bunch of ways you can filter it. Well, site or domain is one of them. If you put .edu in there, or you could put .gov, and click on advanced search, it's only going to give you .edu results. All right, so it can speed up your research time by doing this. All right, so questions on Alabama Virtual Library, library resources, Google search, any of that stuff? As long as they're different articles, they're different sources. So, I mean, if you use, the question was, am I okay with just using one website? I mean, if you get good information from it, it's fine. I mean, for example, if you were doing a paper on the author Edgar Allan Poe, and you talked about The Fall of the House of Usher, Cask of Amontillado, and The Telltale Heart, those are 3 different citations. Those are 3 different works. Same deal with a website with multiple articles. Okay? All right. Well, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. For next time, let me go ahead and stop the video.